I discovered the terrifying truth behind the animal guardian destroyed by Reddit. I never should have opened that door. The chill that raced down my spine felt like ice, slicing through my quiet evening. It was just me, my favorite mug of tea, and the comforting glow of my laptop screen. I had been scrolling through Reddit, looking for something to amuse me, something to break the monotony. That's when I stumbled upon the threads about the animal guardian. Whispers wrapped around my thoughts like a fog. The stories claimed it wasn't just a legend. People spoke of the guardian watching over the woods near my town. They talked about strange sightings, glowing eyes, shadows that moved without bodies. Each post, each comment, sent a wave of cold dread through me, tugged at my curiosity, felt wrong like a finger tracing a scar. The lights flickered, casting elongated shadows across my room. I brushed it off as a dying bulb, a mundane occurrence that didn't matter until I heard it. A soft rustle like dry leaves skimming over concrete. My chest tightened. I glanced toward the window. Darkness hung outside. The street lamps flickered like tired fireflies against the night sky. The air grew heavy, thick with something unspoken. I could almost smell the damp earth, the decay of fallen leaves. The stillness seemed to pulse, as if the world was holding its breath. I leaned closer to my screen, my heart racing, fueled by the tales of others who had ventured into those woods. They spoke of voices, distant cries, entrapments by unseen forces. I felt my hand tremble as I scrolled, my eyes hungry for more. Then came the thud. It was loud and jarring, a sound that fractured the night. My breath hitched in my throat. Another echoing thump, and I bolted upright. My pulse quickened. Was it the wind, or something else entirely? I glanced at my front door, the wood sturdy yet inviting in its ominous way. I felt drawn to it, an irresistible pull, as if something on the other side had a story it wanted to tell me. And then a soft whisper wrapped around me. A voice just above a murmur, tantalizing and chilling. "Come find me." It curled through the darkness, sucking the warmth from the room. My skin prickled. I felt it, the weight of 1,000 eyes watching me, urging me to step out of my safety, into the unknown. Before I could fully process what was happening, the door creaked open just a crack. My heart raced. The shadows seemed to grow hungry, reaching out with skeletal fingers. This is insane, I thought, panic swelling in my chest. But I felt that pull again. Curiosity clawed at my insides. What if there was truth behind this guardian? What if it was really there, waiting for someone bold enough to step into the darkness? I took a deep breath. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud and frantic. The whispers grew louder, spinning a web of suspense around me. Another thud, this time a booming crash that stopped my heart. I wanted to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. And then, just when I thought I couldn't bear it any longer, a figure materialized in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light. A scream ripped through the night, but it was mine the moment the world turned upside down. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The figure in the doorway was inconceivable. For a long moment, I stood paralyzed, lost in the depths of its shadow. The outline of a creature that seemed both human and otherworldly. There was an otherness about it. Something that whispered of ancient woods and secrets buried deep within the earth. My heart thudded, drowning out the whispers that echoed through the room. Their seductive call faltering as instinct kicked in. "Who are you?" The words slipped out steadier than I felt. My voice quivered slightly, cloaked in a mix of fear and defiance. The figure remained still, a statue draped in shadows, its gaze piercing through the dim light. An icy breath caressed the nape of my neck, and I turned to glance at the open door, the blackness beyond swelling like a living thing. Come find me, the voice returned, hauntingly familiar, laced with an urgency that clawed at my insides. The figure took a step forward, its form gradually emerging from the shadows. Disheveled hair framed an angular face, but the eyes, those were not human. They shone like twin coals, glinting with a predatory hunger. Desperation bubbled beneath my skin, igniting an instinct to flee, yet still, I remained. The Guardian, I thought, unspooling the threads of dread that intertwined my thoughts. What had I awakened? What was this strange presence? What do you want? My voice trembled, wavering but insistent. It tilted its head, a sliver of a grin slicing across its lips, revealing teeth too sharp, too angular to belong to anything mortal. Not what who, it murmured, and with that, the air grew thick and heavy, pregnant with a brewing storm that seemed to warp the fabric of the room itself. And then I felt the ground beneath me trembled as if something below was awakening. I staggered backward, my heart hammering, the whispers crescendoing into a cacophony that reverberated through my bones. "Leave me alone," I cried, the words flying in defiance. The presence paused, its laughter echoing like the rustle of leaves stirred by a ghostly wind. "Curiosity will lead you to the truth," it hissed, voice curling around me like smoke. With a snap of its fingers, the glow of my laptop flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. I gasped, my senses sharpening as the creature began to dissolve back into the shadows. "Oh, wait," I yelled, lunging forward, but it vanished, leaving only a gaping void where it had stood. Suddenly, the house echoed with multiple thudsheavy, resonant, as if something primal was awake and prowling through the depths of my home. My stomach twisted. Dread washed over me in waves. I needed to get out, needed to escape this nightmare. Yet the very air seemed to hum with anticipation. Fingers trembling, I fumbled for my phone, the illumination of the screen a hesitant beacon in the encroaching dark. It was then that I saw them tiny claw marks traced along the walls, slick and glistening, as if something had been scrambling to pull itself free. I felt the breath hitch in my throat as the temperature plummeted. The glow of the screen illuminated the outlines of the marks, and a realization hit me. They weren't alone. "Come find me," the voice returned, louder, filling the room with an oppressive weight. The shadows seemed to pulse, drawing nearer, while whisperings echoed from every corner, a symphony of beckoning promises. Panic surged within me. I had to leave. Whirling around, I dashed for the front door. Bursting outside, I halted, breathless, confronted by the unfathomable darkness of the woods that loomed before me. Like a sentient beast, it whispered my name, luring me to step inside. My heart raced as the woods shimmered with an otherworldly glow, a siren of cryptic truths and lurking shadows. Oh, the Guardian was out there, and it was waiting. And then came the sound, a low, guttural growl that rolled through the trees, echoing like a warning through the night. My breath caught. It was closer than I had anticipated. Fear threatened to swallow me whole, but the whispers beckoned with a cruel insistence. "Come find me," hesitated, caught between the safety of my home and the pull of the unknown. Then, in the depths of my terror, I turned, and my instincts screamed. Something was coming. Something joyous and terrifying that meant to answer the call. The last thing I saw was a pair of glowing eyes watching me from the darkness, an unearthly shimmer before everything collapsed into chaos around me, and the world spun into darkness. When I regained consciousness, the world was a blurry slush of dark colors swirling with an eerie luminescence. My limbs felt heavy, as if shackled by chains forged from the very shadows that had engulfed me. It took several seconds before the shapes around me began to sharpen, revealing themselves amidst the gloom that I was no longer in my home but lying on damp earth, framed by colossal trees whose gnarled branches twisted like grasping hands above me. Faded glimmers filtered through the canopy, casting jagged light patterns that danced mockingly on the forest floor. A sense of haunting familiarity clung to the air like unshakable perfume. "Are you awake now?" The voice came from all directions, sprouting from the shadows themselves, coiling around me like smoke. I shot to my feet, torn between the instinct to run and the paralyzing fear that rooted me to the spot. Before me, the figure from before emerged again, pale and drawn against the deep greens of the woods. It was identical but somehow transformed, an amalgamation of dread and allure. Its eyes flickered like embers in a smoldering fire, demanding, "Where am I?" My voice came out as a squeak, wretched with uncertainty. The threshold, it whispered, a cruel smile splitting its face once more. "You, dear seeker, have arrived at the nexus of truths, the very heart of what you've yearned to uncover." The words slithered in and around my mind, igniting an unfathomable curiosity that clashed violently with the instinct to flee. Memories rushed back to the surface, flashes of childhood tales told in hushed tones by elder relatives. The guardiana protectress of secrets and ancient spirits that plagued those who troubled the woods. I could nearly hear the crackle of the fire and see the glinting eyes of my own people as they warned of this place. A fable spun into fraying tales through generations. Curiosity, such a delightful thing, isn't it? The figure continued, stepping closer. The contrast of its twisted features in the half-light became maddening, their sharpness overwhelming. You always wanted to unveil the truth. Yet truths, like daggers, cut deeper than one expects. "What do you mean?" I retorted, my bile rising. "I didn't ask for any of this." The creature's laughter echoed, mingling eerily with the rustling leaves. "You do not choose the truth, child. It is drawn to you just as you were drawn to it." It then extended a crooked finger, pointing into the woods. "Look." My heart raced as I turned in the direction it gestured. Before me, a weighty mist began to rise, venturing forward as if summoned by a phantom hand. As it cleared, a path emerged, lined with gravestones. The inscriptions faded and time-worn. Names I had never known encircled me, whispers of lives long extinguished. Each grave tells the tale of those consumed by their desires, the figure explained, and I shuddered at the implications. They wished to uncover what should remain buried, just like you. "What happened to them?" I whispered, dread pooling in my gut. "They found the truth and it found them, too." Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath me. A growl seeped through the air, resonating from the twisted depths of the woods. The branches above shivered, and an awful crack ripped through the silence. Footsteps sounded heavy, relentless, a crescendo of impending doom. In that vital moment, the figure tilted its head. "Is here for you." Instinct surged, igniting an adrenaline-fueled panic within my veins. I stumbled backward, but the shape beckoned, eyes like smoldering coals fixated on me, piercing my very soul with an expression that teetered between sadistic glee and grim acceptance. "Embrace it. You will not escape," it purred, ethereal tendrils of shadow curling around my ankles that I turned, knowing now that whatever held dominion here was closing in. The air ignited with anticipation, thick with the residue of otherworldly horrors. Instinct kicked in. Feet pounding, I broke into a sprint along the path of gravestones, heart slamming against my ribs, desperately chasing escape. The shadows shifted, writhing underfoot, as unseen beings flashed in the periphery of my vision, venturing too closely for comfort. Menacing growls harmonized with my frantic heartbeat, pulsing in rhythm, urging me to acknowledge the terror that lurked behind. The trees loomed high, whispering secrets that echoed through my mind. Truths unthinkable, but then, I heard a cacophony of rustling, hollering up above, branches bending under the weight of something monstrous, something utterly other. My lungs burned as the ground beneath me began to constrict, like the grip of a tightening noose. Then I stumbled, tripping over exposed roots. As I hit the ground, gasping for breath, I turned to find the creature now hovering above me, shadows billowing around it, glowing eyes alight with malevolent joy. "Dear seeker, what truth will you choose to face?" In that moment of dread, it revealed the darkness that approached. A massive figure, form obscured by dense dark tendrils, loomed beyond the trees, an entity that shrieked of ancient power. And as it broke free, the last sliver of light fled, swallowed by the overwhelming embrace of the forest. And there, Amidst my rising terror, I heard their voices lost, pained, echoing through the woods, mourning the desires that had led them to unthinkable ends. Come find us. The night shuddered and twisted as the darkness engulfed me entirely. I awoke again, though the sensation was hardly a relief. The ground pressed against my skin, cool and clammy, mingling with the bloodthirsty roots that snaked around me like hungry serpents. My eyelids fluttered open to reveal an enveloping darkness that throbbed with an unnatural life. Whispering voices surrounded me, blending into an incomprehensible murmur. Distant, pleading calls laced with despair. Help us, they sighed in unison, a rapturous echo that clawed at my sanity. Find the truth before it finds you. I forced myself to rise, each movement eliciting a chilling response from the shadows. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized the figures swirling just beyond my field of vision, flashes of haggard faces. Wide eyes filled with fear. Their lips whispered twisted truths, each voice a fragment of a haunting past yearning for acknowledgement. They hovered at the fringe of my reality, like moths drawn to a flame, yet their presence only deepened the dread pooling in my chest. Panic surged as I struggled to comprehend the voices or the urgency in their tone. What truth? I gasped, clutching at my throat, glancing frantically between the gravestones. This time, I saw the names inscribed upon their stone faces clearer. Familiar names of family, friends, people I loved who had vanished without a trace. A piercing stab of realization coiled around my heart, urging me to shuffle backward against the cool stone. The figure loomed back into view, its proximity an intimate menace. They craved to be freed. It hissed, fingers twisting like branches in the wind. Their desires became the vessels of their doom. Such is the fate of the seeker. I shook my head in frantic disbelief, desperate to escape the chilling implications lying beneath the words. No, I don't want this. I want to go home. My protest hung in the air, but the shadows thickened, wrapping around my ankles, tugging me downward as if the very earth longed to swallow me whole. Home? The figure mock-laughed, its voice oily and sinuous. Oh, child, there is no home for those who look upon the abyss. You belong here now, a harmonious part of the poignant truths buried under decades of silence. The murmur grew louder, and deeply buried memories unfurled, revealing a family history steeped in darkness. I remembered my grandmother's warnings, her frightened eyes hinting at the spirits trapped within the forest, bound by unquenchable cravings. It occurred to me then these spirits, these lost souls, were living embodiments of the pain that had long ravaged my lineage. Seek the truth, the figure cooed, a torturous drawl that caressed my ears like a lover's whisper. Embrace your destiny, or be devoured by it. The forest quaked beneath us once more, and a clamor of violent growls erupted beyond the trees, a ghastly symphony of hunger. I could see them now, these monstrous entities-furred abominations with gaping maws soaked in shadow. They converged not just as predators but as the manifestations of the very truths I had sought out, much like my own ancestors entangled in an eternally hungry cycle. Just then, the shadows coiled tighter around my lower body, squeezing with impossible force. Fear shot through me like ice, and I felt the gravity of choice looming closer, heavy as lead. Would I brave the truth, no matter how insidious? Or was it too late for escape, already tightly wound within this nightmarish fate? Join us. You have always been one of us, the figure whispered with a voice that promised understanding, but delivered only madness. With the cries of the forest clawing at my subconscious, desperation birthed nerve. Summoning the remnants of dwindling strength, I pushed against the suffocating grasp and leapt forward, thrashing my way past the shadows that hissed and howled in pain and rage. I surged toward the silhouettes of lost souls, their faces blending into a grotesque tapestry that danced and writhed in the clammy air. Help us, they cried, their pleas turning into a chorus of anguish as I dashed toward the edge of the graveyard. Sliding on mudslick earth, I pivoted and raced toward the looming trees that towered above, an open maw inviting me into despair. But the growls behind me erupted into an unholy symphony, one of bone-chilling dread that paralyzed my heart with visceral terror as I crossed into the threshold of the tree line. I felt a shifting, unyielding pull trailed from behind, a visceral noose of darkness threatening to reclaim me, of souls intertwined with death and longing. And in that moment, when I dared to glance back into the graveyard, my breath seemed to escape me. The figures had lined the path, their faces twisted into grotesque expressions of longing and torment, reaching out with clawed hands, faces distorting as they opening their mouths wide in a silent scream. With one last glance, I saw the figure smile, its eyes ablaze with sinister glee. "Welcome back home, dear seeker." It hissed even as shadows coalesced around me, and just as I felt the weight of despair pulling me beneath the earth, the growls turned into deep, resonating laughter, breaking through the cacophony of the engulfing shadows. "Come find us," and then, as though severed from reality, the world around me disappeared in a swirl of darkness. What awaited on the other side was as monstrous as it was unknown, beckoning with promises of horrifying truths yet to be unearthed. My descent into the void was brief, an instantaneous tear through the fabric of reality until I found myself standing again, but not in the graveyard. The air was thick and suffocating, charged with a whispered dread that brushed against my skin like the featherlight touch of a forgotten ghost. I shivered, staring at the hand that trembled before me, feeling disoriented and detached. The familiar warmth of the sun was replaced by a chilling light that flickered and buzzed, revealing a forsaken world painted in shades of gray. Around me stretched an expansive expanse of a barren landscape, ravaged by time and despair. Trees stood, grotesque in their decay, high skeletal columns with gnarled branches that clawed at the clouds of blackened sky that pulsed like an injured heart. I turned slowly, the sense of being watched suffocating beneath the weight of insistent eyes. Abandoned remnants of a small town lay scattered at my feet, buildings leaning into one another, collapsing upon themselves. Their wooden frames splintered and weeping heartache from the shadows. Vague shapes emerged, the same lost souls, only this time bearing the agony of their existences more poignantly. They moved with a grotesque grace, swaying as if caught in an unholy rhythm, their eyes luminescent pools reflecting the torment of their past. A low, droning hum resonated between them, each note twisted with an undertone of despair that crept into my heart like ice. "Help us," they whispered, their desires woven into a song that gripped me. "Let the truths emerge, set us free." Compelled by an instinct I could not control, I reached out, fingers brushing against one of the face-an old woman whose sharp features flickered like a candle's flame. Her expression was a collage of sorrow and hope, and I felt a rush of memories surge through me, all tied to forgotten generations' beauty intertwining with the crushing weight of regret. "Child," she rasped, "you must find the Keeper. He holds the key to ending this cycle. But beware, for the Keeper is not what he appears." "Where is he?" My voice escaped in a frantic rush, laced with urgency and a growing dread deep within me. Before she could respond, a cacophony erupted beyond the spectral congregation, a thrumming of wings that filled my ears and made the ground tremble. Shadows convened by the edges of the town took flight, rising into a swirling tempest of darkness. My heart raced as eyes blinked visible, a multitude reflected by the glint of sharp claws and an overwhelming stench of decay. "Liar," they screeched, the collective howl fracturing the air as what they had once been twisted into forms of raw fury. "The Keeper will not relinquish his power without a price." I stumbled back, every instinct screaming to flee, yet the call of the lost drew tight around me like chains. "What price?" My voice trembled, clinging to the thin thread of determination. But before I could pull further answers from her withered lips, a figure emerged from the shadowed entrance of a nearby building, cloaked in a robe stitched from shadows and sorrow. His face remained concealed beneath the hood, but a pale, gaunt hand extended toward me, beckoning like the unraveling of time itself. He had a presence both mesmerizing and dreadful, an abyss marked with the echoes of countless wails and whispered secrets. "Come, seeker," he intoned, voice oily with the weight of ages. "The truths you crave lie beyond. But beware, for the revelations may shatter the fragile shell of your sanity." That I hesitated, the cacophony of lost souls fraying my composure. For a flickering moment, the old woman caught my eye, desperation radiating from her spectral visage. "Please, you cannot trust him. He will bind you to the truths far worse than the ones you seek." Panic surged through me as my breath quickened, and the shadows stirred with a pulse of seething hunger, drowning out her warning. The keeper extended his hand further, the darkness swirling around him thickening with promise. You have been chosen, and your path is already laid. The air vibrated with a sense of impending doom. The figures of the lost souls pressed inward, their mutation shifting from longing to something more sinister, their eyes now filled with a manic hunger. I stood between the keeper and the spectral army, the weight of their gaze strapping heavy chains against my chest, coiling tighter with every heartbeat, tightening like a noose. In that moment, I felt myself teeter on the edge of an abyss that promised both liberation and eternal bondage. With a single breath to steel myself against the terror of the unknown, I reached forward, torn between the despair of the covetous spirits and the allure of the keeper's dark embrace. Then, without warning, a guttural roar pierced the air, resonating like a fracture in reality. From the shadows emerged a terrifying beast, a grotesque fusion of fur and writhing tendrils. Its eyes burned with a malevolent intensity, locking on me with a primal hunger, more powerful than the yearning of tortured souls. "Run!" screamed the old woman, her voice ricocheting within my mind, pulling me back to the present. But the beast lunged with an unimaginable speed, teeth bared, a horrible glint reflecting the darkness of the cursed realm. I pivoted, scrambling backward, but it was too late. As the creature's maw descended upon me, the deafening laughter of otherworldly beings enveloped the scene, seizing the moment in pure, unadulterated terror, while the final warning slipped from my grasp, and then, everything went black. The silence that followed was a shroud, thick and suffocating. For a heartbeat or perhaps an eternity I floated in nothingness, disoriented, my senses dulled to a simmering pitch. But then, like a sudden breath of stale air, reality came rushing back. I gasped, the cool ground beneath me grounding me to the grotesque remnants of the world. I was sprawled in the center of what had been the skeletal remains of a building, beams splintered and crumbling into dust around me. The beast, had it vanished? Was I losing my mind? Shadows clung to the corners, alive with whispers that coiled around my ears like serpents. "Where are you?" I murmured, heart pounding with a blend of fear and confusion, scanning for the keeper, for the old woman, or even for a ghost of comfort in this tormenting void. I felt them all slipping further away. Suddenly, a crash resonated from the remnants of a collapsed wall, and I turned sharply, adrenaline flooding through my veins. From the wreckage emerged another spirit, though more coherent than the others. This one, a man in tattered clothing, looked more solid, less ethereal. His eyes burned fiercely with desperation, searching, pleading for release from an invisible chain. "Help me," he shrieked, his voice raw, laden with anguish. "They said you could end this." I scrambled to my feet, instincts kicking in as I swept forward. Thoughts of the keeper drifted like smoke in my mind. "What happened to you?" "They want to keep us here," he gasped, grabbing my arm. "If you follow him, you'll become one of them, a harbinger of despair. Trust me. The only way out is through the pain he hides." Fear seized my heart. What pain? The shadows buzzed around us, coiling tighter. The man clenched his jaw, breath hitching. "It's not just about freedom, there's a price. An unbearable burden. The keeper revels in it. He sacrifices us to thicken his mantle of power. Each truth you seek is a shard of your own soul." But before I could question further, a low growl echoed menacingly, drawing both our attentions back to the edges of the ominous expanse. From the darkness, eyes shimmered hungrily, gathering like a throng of dark clouds, ready to unleash a storm. The keeper loomed in silhouette, his form as nebulous as the darkness that framed him. "Seeker," he called, voice dripping with malice. "You dare listen to the wraiths, to the cursed who have long forsaken their own ambitions? They will lead you astray and bind you to a fate worse than the one I offer." "Worse than what?" I yelled, caught in an emotional maelstrom as the veils of shadows swarmed with purpose, searching out my fading resolve. "False hopes," he retorted, voice calm yet laced with an unyielding threat. "Follow the truths. Endure the pain. You might yet join them. There is power in that suffering. even if you become the instrument of its spread. The growls grew louder, filling the air with an oppressive weight. The spirits of the town encroached, crawling from shadows, a contorted mass of desperation driven to madness for escape. I felt the man's grip tighten on me, urgency darkening the air between you. So, this is not the answer, he screamed, panic rising. You don't know what you're choosing. A blinding light flickered unexpectedly, silencing the howling beasts, and at the center of it, the keeper grew larger, an apparition of terrifying clarity. The drumming of wings surged again as more entities joined the fray, converging on my position, their wails reverberating through the air, summoned by the unnatural union of fear and pain. You cannot resist what has already bound you, the keeper howled, stretching his hand toward me. Your spirit cries out for truth. You will find only revelations in your torment. Instinct took over as I tore myself from the man's grasp, the very air thrumming with my internal conflict. A doorless opening appeared behind Hema, gaping maw into yet another horror I could not fathom. Jump, he urged, his face twisting in despair. Before it takes both our souls. Before he devours you whole. Leap into the void. There may still be a glimmer of hope, with the shadows pulsating with fury and the keeper striving for dominion. I faced the choice, the unknown calling to me like a siren. I lunged toward that promising darkness. But the moment I moved, a surge of anguish wrapped around me, tendrils of despair pinning me in place, echoed from the glimmering shadows, the laughter of lost souls rising in a chilling crescendo. You will remain. And in one heart-stopping second, the world spun wildly, a tempest of dark screams and anguished cries. I felt my very essence stretching, tearing at the seams, one last howl erupting from my lips, then silence fell, only to be shattered by a familiar, horrendous roar, followed by the smothering embrace of darkness reeling me back once more. I blinked into the oppressive blackness and felt it coil around me like a suffocating blanket, filled with palpable dread. The roar reverberated through my bones, a tortured echo that left my heart racing and my mind spiraling. The ground beneath me was nothing more than a pit of despair, yet I was aware that whatever depths I had plunged into, the keeper's shadow lurked ever close, an unseen entity eager to claim my fractured spirit. Instinct drove me to stand, my limbs trembling as I staggered upright. Before me loomed the ever-present darkness, pulsing with an energy that defied comprehension. I could almost see the tendrils that hinted at an unseen reality, lurking beneath the surface, taunting me with snippets of what I had left behind. Heart pounding, I stretched out a hand into the oppressive void, feeling for anything solid amidst the swirling chaos. Seeker. The whisper echoed, curling around me with a chilling familiarity, slicing through the void like ice. I faltered, my breath hitching in my throat. Was it him, the keeper? Or was it something else, a memory? A long-lost hope? Seeker. The voice lured, soft yet seductive, drawing closer with each syllable. Come, seek the truth lurking beyond comprehension. I promise you there is no greater power than the knowledge waiting for you just out of reach. Show yourself, I shouted into the void, my voice trembling in defiance. If you're real, then come. The silence that followed felt like an eternity, thick with the weight of uncertainty. Then, cracks appeared in the darkness, illuminating a dismal realm that lay beyond. Shapes danced at the edges of my vision, twisted figures trapped in an existence ruled by the keeper's iron will. They whirled in an agonizing ballet, tethered by the same chains I had felt earlier. Their tortured expressions carved a deep sense of despair into my heart. Then I realized these were the lost souls, those the keeper had taunted with promises of power. They reached out to me, their pale hands quivering, eyes wide with hope mingled with deep-seated regret. Help us, they cried in unison, their voices a chorus of sorrow. Only you can break his hold. Find the shards of truth before he gathers them all. Fingers of ice gripped my heart as the keeper's shadow materialized at the cusp of my fading vision, his gaunt figure absorbing the faint glimmer of hope their cries had offered. You are a fool to think you can save them, he hissed, the edge of malevolence suffocating my resolve. These wretches are but echoes of what they lost, their futures forgotten in their pursuit of ambition. Lost ambition? I braved, my voice low. It's not ambition we seek. We seek freedom from you, the freedom you stole. The keeper's laugh was a shattering sound, reverberating through the air like a blade scraping against stone. Ah, sweet little seeker, your fury is admirable, yet futile. Their souls belong to the shadows now, as yours will soon enough. Just as despair threatened to steal my breath, the man who had warned me appeared again, stepping hesitantly into the flickering light cast by the cracks in the darkness. His eyes were haunted, streaked with the weight of countless nights spent under the keeper's cruel dominion. Don't listen to him, he shouted, voice edged with urgency. He feeds on your doubt. You must reject his power. Fight back. Fight? I echoed, panic seeping into my bones. What does that even mean? The man's gaze pierced through the chaos engulfing us. You possess the key, seeker. Find the shards within yourself, the truths you buried deep in fear. Only by confronting your pain can you sever the chains he forged. As he spoke, flickers of light ignited within the shadows, drawing forth snippets of fragmented memories, moments from my life that had haunted me even in daylight. I saw faces of people I had failed, echoes of laughter mixed with tears, feelings of guilt anchored to my very core. Each sparked memory forced me to confront uncomfortable truths and the agony of choices unmade, the very shards the man had spoken of. The keeper surged, resonating with hatred, and with a grotesque smile that twisted his features into a nightmarish contortion. He screamed, "Stop! You will be swallowed whole by your own burden." But I couldn't turn away. As I forced myself deeper into those memories, a whirlwind of emotions battered against my heart. I felt the darkness coil tighter, breaths shallow and quickening, driven by the truth surging beneath the surface. Each painful realization was a bond severed, each scream a potential redemption. Suddenly, a heart-wrenching scream ripped through the air, a soul being torn from the earth itself. I glanced back. It was the man, convulsing against the very thing he had encouraged me to defy. The keeper's hand gripped his throat, the agony etched on his face resonating with a primal recognition. "Stop!" I cried, reaching for him. A split second later, the keeper's head snapped toward me, recognition flashing in his eyes, a darkened rage igniting. "You will regret this foolishness," he thundered, the air rippling with malevolence. And in that moment of realization, with shadows slithering closer and darkness howling in despair, I felt an overwhelming surge of energy igniting within me, a burgeoning force, as if the shards of truth were uniting into a single burning core. But before I could summon the strength to harness it, a bone-chilling gasp pierced the night, reverberating through the air like a torn scream. The man fell to his knees, face ashen as he gasped for breath. "Seeker, run. You must," but I could only watch in horror as shadows descended upon him, enveloping him in darkness, dragging him mercilessly into the void. His eyes locking with mine, filled with a pleading that resonated beyond words. Then came the shriek, the kind that cuts deep, saturating the air with raw agony, echoing against the walls of despair that imprisoned us both, and just as I turned to escape, my legs faltering under the weight of despair, the ground trembled violently as a fracture split the world beneath my feet, a chasm of darkness threatening to swallow everything, including my last chance at freedom. "Jump!" the keeper's voice boomed, tainted with triumph, as the shadows crowded in, an insatiable maw ready to engulf me. The choice lay before me, yet horror morphed into stark realization. The darkness wasn't just around me, it was swiftly becoming a part of me, an unescapable truth surfacing amidst the chaos, and I stood at the precipice, gasping as the shadows surged, the keeper's laughter consuming my thoughts. "Embrace your fate." In that harrowing moment, a tremor rippled through my core, urging me to make a choice I had never truly understood. As the shadows grasped at my ankles, I felt the tear of reality begin to unravel. What would I choose in those final seconds, hope, or a surrender into the depths of despair? I could feel the air crackling, a pulsing energy that threatened to lure me deeper into despair. The keeper's voice faded momentarily, replaced by the cacophony of whispers, all those lost souls, crying out for redemption, yet bound forever to sorrow. I stood at the edge of existence, an unwilling participant in this monstrous game played by the keeper. Choose. A voice cried out, a deep echo reverberating through the vibrating ground. The shadows writhed, thickening as they crept a fraction closer, coiling around my legs like creeping vines intent on drawing me into the depths. The man who had warned me moments ago, his tortured expression haunted my thoughts, yet I felt his urgency ignite within me with heart pounding. I drew in a breath, teetering on the brink of a decision that felt monumental yet terrifyingly fragile. The memories, now swirling before my mind's eye, beckoned me to confront the truth I had buried, me failures, my fears, and the guilt birthed from choices I had long left unacknowledged. Embrace your fate,